immense pleasure to be your host for the third session of Conclave 2023, organized by the IQAC of DCT's Dempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar, Panji, Goa. We have with us as the chairperson of this session Dr. S. Susan Deborah, who is Assistant Professor and Teacher in Charge, Department of English, MES College of Arts and Commerce, Goa. She is one of the editors of Anthropocene Ecologies of Food, published in 2022, Ecocultural Essays 2018, Eco Documentaries, Critical Essays 2016, and Culture and Media Eco-Critical Explorations 2014. She is the recipient, along with Dr. Raisin K. Alex, of ASLE USA Media Subvention Grant for creating an interactive video space for Eco Cinema Scholarship. She has recently been visiting research associate delivering lectures in Western Washington University, Washington, USA. Her interests lie in eco criticism, eco media, gender studies, and food studies. Dr. Susan, we wholeheartedly welcome you for this virtual seminar presentation, Conclave. This is the third edition of Conclave in our college, and we have with us four presentations today. Without much ado, I would like to hand over the session to you. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Dr. Palia Gaonkar, for that lovely introduction. So I'm glad to be here today, and I thank the college for inviting me here. So I think we directly move on to the session. We have four speakers, four papers here, which are going to be presented. I think you know about the time, 10 minutes for each paper, followed by a discussion. Because since the topics are all varied, I think we can have the discussion after each paper has been presented. And 5 minutes for the discussion. The audience can ask questions to those who have presented. And then we'll move on to the next speaker. And probably towards the end, if we have time, we could probably do, a summing up of all the different papers and try and complete whatever we have to. So, can I call upon the first speaker of today, Ms. Braganza, to present her paper? Please read the title of
Yes,
your
ma'am.
paper and start with your proceedings. Yeah, okay.
A very good morning to all present, respected principal, chairperson, teachers, and you, my dear friends. I am Zenaida Braganza, a first year BA student from BCT's Tempe College of Arts and Science, Miramar. And at the very outset, I would like to begin by thanking God and our college for organizing this webinar series and giving us the opportunity to showcase our interest beyond curriculum. The topic I've chosen for today's presentation is India's foreign policy, the transitioning of the Look East policy into the Act East policy. So let's begin with a brief explanation of what a country's foreign policy actually is. Foreign policy refers to the mechanism which national governments use to guide their diplomatic interactions and relations with other countries. In short, it refers to the sum total of principles, interests, and objectives that a country promotes while interacting with other countries. However, the thrust of a country's foreign policy keeps on changing according to changing international conditions. India's foreign policies, too, are developed and shaped on the basis of a variety of circumstances in a number of areas, namely historical, cultural, geographical, economic, political, and so on. Among the various Indian foreign policies, the policy which I'll be laying emphasis on today is India's Look East policy, which later transitioned to be the Act East policy. India's Look East policy was launched in the year 1991 by the then Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao. It was a policy which aimed at accomplishing greater economic and political ties with countries of South and Southeast Asia. However, in order to analyze the policy better, it's important that we understand the domestic and international scenario under which India's Look East policy was formulated. The beginning of 1990s was a very turbulent period for India as the country witnessed an unstable domestic environment. Violent activities were initiated by insurgent groups in Jammu Kashmir and the northeastern parts of our country, which became even more active with the emergence of the Sagyang division of Myanmar as a safe haven for these insurgent groups. The underground smuggler market in Cambodia was an important source of arms and ammunition, and the drug smuggler market in the Golden Triangle, which was a border region comprising of Laos, Myanmar, and Thailand, created threats to India's national security. India thus required the cooperation of the governments of the Southeast Asian countries in order to deal with such national security issues. The 1990s saw the Gulf crisis, and this had a negative impact on the Indian economy as India depended much on the Middle Eastern states for our supply of oil and trade. Besides, the political situation in our country too was very unstable, as three successive governments were formed within a short period of just 2 years. In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed, and this brought an end to the Cold War. However, this had huge implications for India, as the former Soviet bloc had been India's time tested friend and always stood in favor of India diplomatically. Besides, India launched its own LPG policy in the year 1991, and this opened up the country's economy for trade and development. It was our Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's strategic vision that he quickly grasped the changing economic and political paradigms of international relations and launched India's Look East policy in the year 1991. Through the policy, India wished to fulfill the following objectives. The main objective of the policy was regional integration, by which countries of Southeast Asia would cooperate and work closely together in order to establish peace and stability in the region. Reform and liberalization. Though the Look East policy was a byproduct of India's LPG policy launched in the year 1991, it aimed and sought to further liberalize the Indian economy by setting up by lowering trade barriers and liberalizing the investment regime. Rapid economic growth. India realized that the East Asian economic miracle and its open economic system could be a good model for development of our own economy. Therefore, it looked towards our East Asian neighbors and seek to develop ties with them in order to establish rapid economic growth for our own country. Through the Look East policy, India wished to develop the northeastern parts of our country. The northeastern states have been underdeveloped ever since independence, and this has led to various forms of unrest in the region. However, through the policy, India now views the northeastern states as a gateway to Southeast Asia rather than an end in itself. This has led to development of our 8 northeastern states as well. Through the Look East policy, India reaped various benefits. It led to the rapid progress of bilateral relations between India and ASEAN members. India's linkages with ASEAN member countries was upgraded to a sectorial dialogue partnership in the year 1992, with main focus in 3 areas, namely trade, investment, and tourism. In December 1995, India-ASEAN relations were upgraded to a full dialogue partnership. The increasing cooperation between India and ASEAN members strengthened not just our economic ties, but also our security linkages, and this led to India's admission to the ASEAN Regional Forum in the year 1996. In 2002, India became one of the four ASEAN summit level partners alongside China, Japan, and South Korea. India witnessed a transformation, or more of an upgradation, of the Look East policy into the Act East policy in the year 2014 under the Prime Ministership of Shri Narendra Modi. As the very name suggests, Look, Act East. Act meant action, and East symbolized direction. The policy was thus action oriented and was a diplomatic move to promote our economic, strategic, and cultural linkages with the Asia Pacific region. The term Act East was first popularized by US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton during her visit to India in July 2011 when she urged New Delhi not just to look east but also to engage east and to act east. The Act East policy is thus considered as the upgraded version of India's Look East policy. India's Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi used the ASEAN summit in Myanmar's capital Naypyidaw in order to unveil India's new Act East policy. Modi addressed the 12th ASEAN India Summit on 12 November 2014 with the words, "A new era of economic development, industrialization, and trade has begun in India. Externally, India's Look East policy has now become the Act East policy. Through the Act East policy, we aim to fulfill the following objectives: to promote economic cooperation, cultural ties, and develop strategic relations with nations in the Asia Pacific region, focusing mainly on the regional, bilateral, and multilateral fields, improving economic development of the northeastern region as a gateway to Southeast Asia by improved physical connectivity, infrastructure development, and development of trade. The main objective of India's Act East policy is to contain China by curbing its increasing influence in the ASEAN region and the South China Seas. The core seat of the Act East policy are also considered to be the pillars of our Act East policy, namely culture, connectivity, commerce, and capacity building. As described by PM Modi, India's vision for the region is well described in the acronym SAGAR, which stands for Security and Growth for All in the region. Through the Act East policy, we have undertaken various initiatives in order to enhance connectivity. The Kalagan multimodal
Braganza, sorry
transport.
to interrupt you. I think your 10 minutes is up. So can you please wind up your presentation?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So, the future prospects which India can look up to in relation to its Act East policy is that India should be more proactive in the region as expected by ASEAN and East Asian countries. Southeast Asian countries too look up to India to play a more vital counteracting role to Chinese hegemony. India should increase the use of its soft power in the region by building upon its cultural ties and diplomatic relations by promoting tourism and people to people interaction. Since most of our Southeast Asian countries are prone to natural disaster management could be one of the most important instruments of our Act East policy. India's Act East policy is thus crucial to India's overall growth and development in the region, and investing in its proper implementation could definitely reap India rich dividends in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Braganza, for that detailed presentation. It was quite engaging and informative at various levels, especially because we have been talking and discussing China so much in the past 3 years. It's very, when we read things like to contain China, it sounds very, I don't know. I was not aware of this policy before I heard of this presentation. Of course, I did read up a little bit before coming here and did my homework, but it's very interesting to note the nuances. Now, the floor is open for discussion. We have about 5 minutes. If any of you would like to address any of the questions you have in your mind to Miss Braganza, I think you can do that now. Or please, you can type your question in the chat box if that is allowed. You could do that, or you could probably unmute yourself and ask any question to Miss Braganza. Okay, we have somebody saying that was a lovely presentation. Thank you. I'm saying thanks on behalf of Braganza. If there are no questions, could we move on to the next speaker? Do I have your permission to move on to the next speaker if you have no questions? I gather that as a yes. So let's move on to the next speaker of today's conclave, that is Miss Prachiti Gurudas Raikar, and she is going to talk about the Indian economy after independence. So please stay tuned. And in the course of the presentation, if you have any questions that pops up in your mind, please feel free to type the question in the chat box. Maybe the speaker could handle it after their presentation is done. So over to you, Ms. Riker. Ms. Riker, I don't see you presenting. Are you here? Where are you? Okay.
Not audible. Just unmute yourself.
Dr. Susan Prachiti is joining soon. She's having a little bit of technical difficulty, but we are sorting it out. Thank you for your patience.
Okay. Is the presentation visible now, ma'am?
Speak. Audio is breaking. Audio is breaking.
Hello, am I audible, ma'am? Yes, you are audible, but there is an echo and your voice is trailing back and forth. Uh, yeah, we can hear you, but it's not very clear.
Not too clear. Come. You want to switch? Chiti here. Want to switch here? Come here. Come here.
Dr. Susan, we would like to move on with the next presenter as we are trying to solve the difficulty that Miss Prachiti is facing. So we could move on to Miss Nikita Lewis's presentation.
Okay, okay, no problem. Yeah, so let me welcome Miss Nikita Lewis. Sorry, Nikita, I think you have to go ahead now. Yeah, and she is going to talk on nuts and bolts of creative writing. So, Miss Lewis, please take over.
Yes, ma'am. Just a second. Let me just present my slide. Ma'am, I hope it's visible.
Yes, your presentation is visible and you're audible also. Yeah.
Okay. Not ready. Camera is not ready.
Okay, ma'am. Well, this session is titled Nuts and Bolts of Creative Writing. And through this session, I hope that
Put camera on.
those who have a passion for writing,
On camera.
just a second, ma'am. Okay, let me restart. A very good morning. And this session is titled Nuts and Bolts of Creative Writing. And through this session, I hope to sort of provide a helping hand to those who have a passion for writing and those who want to take up writing, while also motivating those who have never really thought of actually penning down their ideas and stepping into this zone. Well, my name is Nikita Lewis, and I'm a TYBA English honors student. I personally write a lot, and I enjoy doing so. And I would like to talk about a few difficulties that I have faced and how I have overcome them. And through this, I would like to help my fellow aspiring writers as well. So let us get right into it. When it comes to writing, there are a multitude of methods, techniques that writers can pick up. And from those, there are two prominent ones. The first is discovery writing, and the other, mapping. Now, discovery writing is more of a freestyle writing, and it is where a writer writes, and as they write, they develop their plots. So they do not have a sort of strict outline or a structure when they write, but it's more like adding various genres, various ideas, and characteristics to your plot as you are writing. Now, discovery writing is a really good technique, but it is sort of a good technique when you're writing shorter compositions like poems, short stories, essays, and so on. However, many people find it difficult to use discovery writing as a technique when you're going in for larger compositions like novels, volumes, in the sense when you have a series of novels with a similar plot line. So when it comes to larger works, you require a stronger foundation, one where the setting, the premise, which is the setting, is strong, and you have a sort of understanding of all the steps that you have to go through. So for people going in for large compositions, it's just the method of mapping. eating or drinking. So the moment you come up with an idea, pen that idea down. No matter how raw, lame, or illogical the idea sounds, it is always good to pen it down, because then you can always go back to it and develop that idea. Moreover, penning such ideas down helps you to sort of understand how far you have come with regards to your imagination. So always write your ideas down. Now, as I said, writers are human beings, and we don't always have that idea that pops up, or our creativity may not be to that extent yet. So in this day and time, we have something called as the prompters. There are many sites now prompts of ideas just to outline. So you can just write down about that scene that comes to your mind. Describe what image you get, or you can think of a character and write some prominent characteristics that make that character who he or she is. So all of this you write it down, and that would form your outline. Now another thing that you can actually write about and start from there is the setting or the premise or the genre or many other things that just come to your mind. The main aim is to write something and sort of follow from there, because that provides you with a great base to start from. Now, when you write your idea, make sure you come back to it and develop it. Now, you need to do this as soon as possible, because the more time you spend away from it, the less interesting it feels to you. You lose passion, and that idea remains abandoned. Now, one important thing as a writer is to be able to choose what technique suits you best. Because remember, freedom is a necessity for all forms of art. So you need to be able to choose what suits you best, and don't stick to a certain structure or a technique. Try to experiment. Now, the next step would be divide and rule, not in its literal sense, but what I like to call divide and rule is basically dividing your work into chapters. Now, mapping, as I said, is a technique for larger compositions. So you can divide it into chapters, and then allot few events for each chapter. Now, this provides you with shorter goals to work on, which eventually will lead you to success overall. And I would suggest in each chapter of your work, have maximum 2 to 3 major events, because if you put in too many events, it will be too crowded. The reader, whoever's reading your work, will find it too heavy, and may even drop that work of yours. So having just 2 or 3 major events helps you give space to your work, and you can add in fillers which will help your reader understand your character better. So when you add fillers, you are able to develop your character even more, and this helps to sort of space everything out and yet give your work depth. Then the next step is to begin writing. Once you have your structure, your outline in place, you need to start. Now, for some writers, when you start writing, for them, the sort of passion to write is sort of nicely paced. So whenever you feel like it, you can just start writing. You can continue writing. Now, one problem I personally faced was I never really felt as if I wanted to write very soon. It was like if once a month, then the next month. So this technique does not really work for you if you don't come back to it as soon as possible. So I sort of found out a solution to this, and for me, it was finding my own tempo. Now, when I'm talking about this, I would like to talk of the sites right there, Write and Scribbler. These two sites are really good for those who want to sort of find your own pace and provide yourself with that time limit wherein you can actually write. Now, I have personally used the site Write, wherein it's a site where you can set a timer. Maximum, say 20 minutes would be a good for those who are trying to start. Once you set a timer, all you have to do is just continuously write. Do not stop to think or develop your ideas, but keep writing. After the timer gets over, you can always come back and edit. So what these sites provide you is with a sort of a rush when you're writing, so you don't really leave that idea or abandon it, but you're coming back to it. So as long as you find your pace, you will be able to write. And remember, always enjoy it while you're working on it. Another important step would be to take breaks. Every human being requires a break, and once you feel like you're forcing yourself, it is always necessary to take a break, because if you keep going, your work won't the outcome won't be as good as you're capable of having one. So it is always necessary to stop. Now, when I say stop, the reasons for this could be many. For instance, you could say have scene A and you could have scene C, but you will not be able to realize how to connect those two scenes, because you may not know how to go about with scene B. So in such an instance, what you can do is, say, go ahead and start with scene E or F, and then you can come back, and when you find an idea on a way to connect the two scenes, you can start working on it. Another way to take a break is to go back and start editing what you have already written. These things help you to stay in touch with your work, and in that sense, your work does not remain abandoned. Now, if both these techniques do not work for you, another would be a temporary halt. Stop with that work, go write something else, or sort of go out, hang out with your friends and all of that. But remember, it is called a temporary halt, so you have to come back to it and continue. So while it is necessary to take breaks, remember, consistency is also key, so you need to always come back and continue with where you left off. Finally, if you keep writing, you are going to at one point reach to the end. One thing I would like to talk about is beta readers and proofreaders. So this is an important step. A beta reader is basically someone, or it could be a friend or someone has a good command over their language. You could just approach them and ask them to read through your work and provide you with feedback. Now, a beta reader will help you as you are writing. Now, this is important because when we are writing, it is always like we are very likely to, sort of diverge from the topic we had in mind, or have loopholes in our works. Or it is also possible that we get good feedback that will help us to develop further and write better. So a beta reader is someone who helps you by providing you with feedback as you are writing. Then the next is proofreaders. Now, proofreaders come into play once your entire work is over, and they will help you editing with regards to more technical details, grammar, spellings. And don't feel afraid to actually show your work to people, because the feedback that they provide you is very necessary for you to develop further and develop your skills basically and become a better writer. So beta readers and proofreaders are very important, and every writer should have that one person you can go to and ask for feedback. Now it comes to publishing your work. Now remember, not all writers write to publish. Some like to keep it for themselves, and that's completely fine. Maybe in future, if you feel like you want to put your work out, you can come back, edit your work, and then publish it. Now, ways to do this is you can start small. You can have blogs where you post your work. There are also many online sites that sort of help authors to put out their work, and you can have your own fandom, or you can meet a group of other aspiring writers and have a small friend circle, provide each other with feedback, and help each other out. Another platform would be Twitter. Many people actually write and put their work out on this platform in the form of threads. So if you find that better, you can go for it. Another way is to create your own space, put your work out, share your work with your friends itself, and help them build their own plots. If they are into that, they can help you by giving you feedback. So just create your own space and try to put your work out. Now, as I said, I do write by myself, and I would like to show you a character sketch that I and a friend of mine created. It was actually a part of an activity in class, and we had to partner up with someone, so I did, and it was a character sketch for an ideal detective, and we came up with a detective named Ryan Dunn, who's supposed to be Irish, male, and we added small gimmicks, that gives the character depth and helps us to develop from there. So now, when we created this, it was always at the back of my mind, and I always wanted to go ahead and write something about it. So when I came up with an idea, I informed my partner with whom I created the character sketch and told her that I have plans on developing this into an actual plot line. And after informing her about it, I began writing, and I have written it. It's called Imbalance and Symmetry, and I have used random in it. So I would like to read a few lines. Well, I would go with the first paragraph itself, because it gives you a nice intro onto the rest of the story. The room was exceptionally silent, with everyone intently staring at the telephone on the center table. Ryan Dunn, however, seemed to have no interest in it. He was rather fascinated by the way the house of the Melanies was styled. Everything was beautifully arranged in a symmetrical fashion. Not a thing seemed out of place. Even the room freshener sprayed in the house seemed pleasant, though strong. And yet, Dunn felt something was off, or perhaps it was just his inner desire to find some flaw in the house, one of his many uncanny hobbies. After all, nothing in this world was perfect. So, this just gives you an insight into the rest of the story, and some of the details here may or may not be important later on. And it is, after all, a detective fiction, there's mystery, and this is one of the works I'm really proud of. Now, if you look at the character sketch, I have mentioned a backstory which says that once Randon accidentally solved a case and gained a detective friend who quite often requires his help in solving cases. I have used this and slowly, put it in one of the paragraphs. It is actually in paragraph 3, which I will read to you. But before that, I want to tell you how you can use such details and, sort of put it in quietly and very subtly into your work. This provides your readers with an understanding of the character. And remember, trust your readers because your readers know what they're reading. They're able to figure out all the clues you leave in, so you don't have to have all these details right out there. Someone's mic is on.
Yeah, I have switched on my mic because I think you're running out of time. You have exceeded your
Yes,
time
ma'am. This is
limit.
the
Yes.
last slide. I'm
Okay.
concluding, ma'am. Yes. Okay. So this in this way you can sort of add your details very subtly and still create a masterpiece. Well, over here in the third paragraph, if you look at it, it reads, "Well, Inspector Dunn had his phases. Dunn, though a quirky professor, was an amazing detective with exceptional skills. He had once unintentionally helped Burns solve a case, and since then has been helping the inspector when needed to. So in this way, you can add small details which gives your character depth, and you never know, your character could be one of the favorite characters your reader may have. So with that, I come to the end of my presentation. I hope that I have been able to solve problems. If there are aspiring writers, I hope I have been able to reach out to you all. And if though for those who have never thought of taking up writing, I hope you all may at least start now. So if you all have questions, please do keep them coming.
Thank you, Miss
Thank you,
Riker.
ma'am.
Sorry, not Riker, Miss
Miss
Lewis, for that
Lewis.
excellent presentation. Yes, I think when it comes to writing, I think many of them have so many problems. First, I think the first is lack of confidence. Then it is laziness. I think you have addressed all those different issues which people may face with writing. I think you can be an excellent buddy to show our writing to and probably guide us also. And I'm quite impressed that at TYBA level you are so focused in your writing, and the piece that
Thank
you
you, ma'am.
shared with us so kindly was also very well written. And I'm in fact jealous of people in Dempe to have students like that. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Can we quickly do a roundup if there is any question for Miss Louise? Can you just put it up in the chat box or probably unmute your mic and ask them to her? Anything you want direction in writing, or probably, I think you're getting only compliments. Nobody is asking any questions in the chat box. Everyone is only complimenting and congratulating the presenters. So if there are no questions, can we move on to Miss Riker if her presentation is ready?
Thank you very much.
Yeah, so appreciations are pouring in for your presentation. It was indeed a very well done presentation.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah. Yes, Clarinda ma'am, do you have a question? Yeah. Clarinda ma'am is asking, how do you handle negative feedback?
Well, this only solution to that is to actually sort of consider all the feedback you get, positive as well as negative. And if you get negative feedback, always go to it and check. You always check back what you have written, and how you can improve. Now there is constructive feedback, there's negative feedback. So if it is constructive, do work on it. Negative feedback, see if there is actually a point that's been made, and if you find that it's just pure hate, know that you need to have confidence confidence in your work. And you need to always surround yourself with positive people, people who help you come up. And I think having such a circle would help you to get away from all the negativity and to focus on what you want to do. So that's all I would suggest.
Thank you. You have a lot of congratulatory messages. If Miss Riker is ready, can you
Yes.
present now? Thank you. Rachiti, are you ready? I mean, I don't see you here at all.
Dr. Susan, she's getting ready. Just
Oh
a
yeah,
few
she's right
seconds.
here. Okay.
Am I audible?
Am I audible?
Hello?
Yes, you are audible.
Visible, ma'am?
Is the screen visible, ma'am? Yes, the presentation is also visible. Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Prachiti Riker. I'm from
Today I'm
FIP.
here to present
Today
a
I'm
very
here to
important, a very
present
interesting,
a
as well
very
as a wide
important,
topic
a very
that is Indian
interesting,
economy
as well as a
after
wide topic that is Indian economy after independence.
So before we look for the presentation, it's very
So before we
important
look for
for
the
us as
presentation,
Indians
it's
to
very
know the
important
actual
for us
data,
as
the
Indians
facts
to know
about
the
our
actual
country.
data, the
India
facts
is the
about our
seventh
country.
largest country by
India
area.
is the
When it
seventh
comes to
largest country by
population,
area.
our rank is
When it comes
second.
to
We
population,
have more
our rank
working
is second.
population in the
We
country.
have more
It
working
is sixth
population in the
largest
country.
economy
It
at
is
market
sixth largest
extension.
economy
When
at
it comes
market
to
extension.
purchasing power
And when it comes
parity,
to
our
purchasing
rank
power
is third
parity,
all over
our
the
rank
world.
is third all over the
India
world.
is the largest and
India is
fastest
the
growing economy.
largest, fastest
This
growing
point is
economy.
very
This
important
point
because
is very
this further
important
leads to the
because this
progress in
further
the
leads to the
economic
progress
conditions
in the
of our
economic
country.
conditions of our
Since
country.
the 21st
Since the
century,
21st
India has
century,
witnessed a
India has
GDP growth
witnessed a
rate from
GDP growth
6%
rate from
to 7%.
6% to 7%.
India's 70%
India's
of
70% of
GDP is
GDP is
affected
affected
and
and
driven by
driven by
domestic
domestic
private
private
consumption of
consumption of
things,
things,
sector,
sector, and
and
trades.
trades.
We'll see how the things goes in an economy further.
So before we
So before
understand
we
what
understand
happened,
what
actually what
happened,
happened, we
actually
need
what
to
happened,
understand
we
the
need to understand
background
the
of India
background
as
of
well.
the India as well.
Background of India during
Background of
the eve of
India during the
independence.
eve of
So if we
independence.
see
So
during
if
the
we
time of
see during the time of
independence, the
independence,
Indian
the
wealth was
Indian wealth was
destroyed and
destroyed and
exploited by the
exploited
British
by the
people.
British
The
people.
nation's
The
wealth
nation's
was
wealth
exploited
was
by the British.
exploited by the
All the
Britishers.
natural
All the
resources,
natural
iron
resources,
ores,
iron
gold,
ores,
mine,
golds,
manpower,
mine, manpower,
everything
everything
was
was
subjected to
subjected to
intense
intense
population
population by the
by the
Britishers.
British. We
We
had
had
no
no
freedom
freedom
at
at
all.
all.
And due
And
to
due
this
to this
atrocities,
atrocities,
the
the
Indian
Indian
economy
economy
on
on
the
the
eve
eve
of
of
independence
independence
showed
showed
poor
poor
or
or
low
low
economic
economic
growth.
growth. We couldn't progress
And
that time.
simply
And
accepting this
simply
situation
accepting
or
this
just doing nothing
situation or
about it
just doing nothing
was
about it is what it
that
was
was not
is,
at all an
that was
option.
not at
We
all an
had to
option
take
because we
immense
had to take
efforts
immense
and knowledge
efforts
which were
and
essential
knowledge
in
which were
order to move
essential in
ahead.
order to
So
move
we had
ahead.
to do
So we
something.
had
Now let's see
to do
what India
something.
actually did. Economic
Now
planning
let's see
started
what
in
India
India
actually
in
did.
1950s.
Economic
Now
planning
this
started in
planning
India
has
in
revolved around the
1950s.
five-year plan.
Now this planning
This
had
five-year plan
revolved around
has
the 5 year
long-term
plan basically,
objectives.
and this
We'll see
5
the
year
objectives
plans
which are
had long
listed.
term objectives.
So the
We'll see
first
the
objective
objectives
is
which are
high
listed.
growth rate to
So
improve
the
the
first
standard of
objective is
living of
high growth
residents of
rate to
India.
improve the
This
standard of living
basically
of
means that the
residents of
quality
India.
of life
This
that people
basically
live
means that
should be up to
quality
the
of
mark.
life that
They
people
should
live,
get
it
enough
should be up to the
resources that
mark.
they wish for.
They should get enough
Second is
resources that
economic
they wish for.
stability for
Second
prosperity.
is economic
If people
stability for
want to
prosperity.
prosper in their
If
life, they
people
should
want
have
to
equitable
prosper in
amount
their
of
life, they should
resources.
have
Second
equitable
point
amount
is
of
like that.
resources.
The
The
third
second
point
point
is
reflects that.
indeed very
The
important,
third
that is
point is indeed very
self-reliant
important, that
economy,
is
which means that
self-reliant
India
economy, which means
shouldn't
that
be dependent
India
on any
shouldn't be
other
dependent
country
on
for
any
certain
other country for
resources or maybe for goods or maybe
resources
for
or maybe
anything.
food grains or maybe
India
for
should be
anything.
independent. That's
India
what
should be
it says.
independent. That's
The
what it
fourth point is
signifies.
social justice
The
and
fourth point
reducing
is
the
social
inequality.
justice and
We
reducing the
all know that
inequality.
in a
We all
society
know
there's
that
gap
in a
between
society
haves and
there's gap
have-nots.
between
There's
haves
gap
and
between rich
have-nots.
and
There's
poor,
gap
the
between
upper
rich
class
and
and the lower
poor,
class.
the
This
upper class and the lower class.
needs to
This
be
needs to be
eradicated.
reduced.
That's
This
what the
needs to be
fourth point says.
eradicated. That's what the
And the
fourth
last
point
point is
suggests.
modernization of the
And the
economy.
last point is
More mechanical
modernization of
and
the
more
economy.
technologically
More
advanced
mechanical
production
and
and
more
supply chains
technologically
add
advanced
greater value to the
production in
market
supply chains
products that
add
are being
greater value
consumed
to the
by the
market
people.
products
So
that are
till
being
now,
consumed
12
by the
five-year
people.
plans have
So
been
till
worked
now,
in
12
India and
5-year
each had
plans have
different
been
goals and
worked in
objectives.
India and each had different goals and objectives.
Indian economy is basically divided into three
Indian
sectors:
economy is basically
primary
divided
sector,
into three
secondary
sectors:
sector, and
primary
secondary sector,
sector,
tertiary
secondary
sector.
sector,
Now
and
we'll see the
secondary sector,
economic growth in
tertiary
agriculture
sector.
sector.
Now we'll see the
If we see
economic growth in
statistically, it
agriculture
says
sector.
that in the
If we
first
see
half of
statistically it says that in the first half of the 20th century, the sector grew at about 1% annually, and then it's coming to post-independence era. The growth rate nudged about 2.6%
Agriculture is the
per
most
annum.
significant source of income for the
Agriculture is the
central as
most
well as the
significant
state
source of
government.
income
Food grains in
for the
India
central
saw
and the
great
state
rise
government.
in Indian
Food grains in
economy
India
during
saw
the
great
agricultural
rise in
revolution
Indian
that has
economy
taken place.
during the
So what
agricultural
are the
revolution
factors
that
behind
had
it? That's
taken
the
place.
question, right?
So
So
what
we'll
are the
see that
factors
as well.
behind it? That's the question.
Expansion of farming
So we'll see
areas
that as
and the
well.
introduction of
Expansion of
high-yielding
farming
variety
areas
of
and the
crops were the
introduction of
major
high
factors for
yielding
the
variety
growth
of
in
crops
agriculture
were the
production.
major factors for
Now,
the growth
the
in
sector could
agricultural
manage to
production.
end its
Now,
dependency on
the
imported
sector could manage to end its
India could
dependency on
produce
imported
own
fruit.
fruit grain.
India
India
could
was very
produce its own
self-reliant.
fruit grain.
It depended on
India
any
was very
other country for
self-reliant, so it was not dependent on any other country for the
the
same.
next thing which we'll be covering is industrial sector.
We're
So it
covering is
says that
industrial
industrial
sector.
policy resolutions of IPR
IPR,
in
which was found in
1956,
1956,
it
it
emphasizes
emphasis
on
on
establishment
establishment
of
of
heavy industries with public sector
heavy
undertaking in
industries
this
with
area.
public sector
And it
undertaking in
also
this area.
reduced the
And it
tendency
also
on
reduced the tendency on
monopolistic market, and also it
monopolistic market, and
prevented the
also it
economy from
prevented the
concentration
economy
of
from
economic power
concentration
in
of
the
economic
hands of
power
few
only
big
in hands of
economic
few big
industrialists. So it was equitable,
economic
and the
industrialists.
LPG
So it was
model,
equitable.
which includes
And
of
the LPG
liberalization,
model, if you see, which
privatization, and
includes of
globalization,
liberalization,
it actually made India
privatization,
grow because the
and
country
globalization,
opened up
it
worldwide
actually
and the
made
trade
India
and
grow
commerce
because the
activities
country opened up
could excel in
worldwide
India.
and trade and commerce
And in early years
activities
of
excel in their
1990s,
own
there was a
terms.
significant
And
growth in
in early
industrialization.
years of 1990s, there was a significant growth in industrialization due to increase in infrastructure, that is infrastructural investment increase, that was increased, and reduction in exercise duty, availability of finance,
Now we'll
etc.
see service sector. Service sector, which is
Now we'll
also
see
called as
service
tertiary
sector.
sector, is
Service
very
sector, which is
important when
also
it comes
called
to
as
Indian
tertiary
economy.
sector, is very
This is
important when
basically
it
the
comes to
third
Indian
tier
economy.
of three
This is
leaders
the
of
basically the
economy.
third
A
tier
major
of three
development in
layers of
nation
economy.
services has
A major
it has been
development in
taken
nation
place, and
services
the major
has
focus
been
was
taking
telecom
place,
and
and
the
the
information
major
technology
focus was
sector.
telecom
The
and the
other services
information
in
technology
service
sectors.
sector
The
include
other
storage,
services in service sector
communication,
include the
transport, and many
storage,
others. So
communication,
this
transport, and
further
many other.
created
So
generated
this further
generated many
created generate
thousands
like
of
it
jobs
generated many
which could
thousands
employ
of
people,
jobs
and
which
this
could employ
increased the
people,
domestic
and this
consumption,
increased
and
the domestic
naturally more
consumption,
foreign direct
and
investment happened
naturally
to meet
more
the
foreign
demands of
direct
people.
investment happened
We'll
to
see
meet
some
the demands
statistical
of the
data over
people.
here.
We'll see some
According to the
statistical data
economic
over here.
survey
According to the economic
2021-22,
survey
the service sector accounted for
2021-22,
more
the
than
service sector
60%
accounted for
of
more
Indian
than
GDP, which is a great deal. And future indications will be better than this. This is also this can be also assured.
this can be also assured.
Next is infrastructure development. Infrastructure is
Next
the
is
key
infrastructure
sector of
development.
Indian economy. It will
Infrastructure
include
is the
power,
key
bridges,
sector of
dams,
Indian economy.
highways,
It will
urban
include
infrastructure,
power,
etc.
bridges,
All
dams,
are included
highways,
in
urban
infrastructure
infrastructure, etc. All are
we will
included in
focus on the road
infrastructure
part. The
industry.
Indian road
So we'll
network has
focus on the
become one
road
of the
part.
largest
The
in the
Indian
world.
road network
And when
has
it comes
become
to
one of the
power,
largest in the
Union
world.
Minister of
And when it
Power
comes to
is
power,
in India is gearing up
Union
to meet
Minister
the
of
high
Power is
electricity
in India
demand
is
by
gearing up to
adopting
meet the high
multi-pronged
electricity
approach.
demand by
Multi-pronged
adopting
approach, which is
multi-pronged
highly
approach,
important. And due
multi-pronged
to this,
approach, which
we
is
have
highly
also the
important.
progress. The
And
progress
due
is
to
the
this,
one
we
that
have
I have
even got
written
the
the
progress.
blue
The
line over
progress
there.
is the one that I've written the blue
India
line over there, which
has
is highlighted.
emerged as the
India
third
has
largest
emerged
producer
as
of
the third
electricity in
largest
India.
producer of
This
electricity
indeed
in
is a
India, and
proud thing
this
for us as
indeed is
Indians.
a proud thing for
Next,
us
we'll
as
focus on
Indians.
the Prime
Next,
Minister
we'll focus
Gati
on the
Shakti
Prime
National
Minister
Master
Gati
Plan.
Shakti
This
National
plan
Master Plan.
basically was
This plan basically
established to
was
revolutionize the
established to
infrastructure in
revolutionize
India.
the
The
infrastructure
Gati
in
Shakti
India.
is
The
digital
Gati Shakti
platform
is
that had
digital platform
16
that had
ministries
16
coming all together
ministries
for
coming all
planning, for
together
cooperating,
for
for the
planning and for
development
cooperating
of
for the
the infrastructure. And that was
development
the
of the
thing about the
infrastructure.
plan.
And
Now,
that
when it
was
comes to
the
iron and
thing
steel
about this
development,
plan.
even iron and steel
Now,
is
when it
very
comes to
important
iron
because
and
it
steel
strengthens
development,
the
even iron
value of
is
the
very
economy
important
and
because
it
it
provides
strengthens the
benefits to the
value of the
economy as well
economy
as
and
the
it
people
provides
around.
benefit to the economy and to the people around.
Now, we saw the sectors, right? Now, we can't neglect the other
Now we
factors
know the
that help
sectors,
India
right?
to grow.
Now the
So,
other
the other
factors
factors
helped
that
India
help in
to
improving
grow.
India's
So the
economy
other
are
factors that helped
these
in
three
improving
points
India's
that I have
economy
listed on
are
the slide.
the
The
three
very first
points
one
that
is
I
the
have
progress
listed
in
on the slide.
education.
The very first one is
Education is
progress in
highly
education
important
sector.
for the progress. We
Education
all
is
know this.
highly
India
important for the
has
progress. We
managed to bring
all
its
know this.
education system
India
at
has
par with
managed to
global
bring its
standards.
education
And the
system
most
at par with
important
global
point here is
children. And the most important point here is that education, elementary education has become a fundamental right of the children. Children have to have that particular education criteria that they need to fulfill. They should complete the elementary education. That is age ranging from 6 years to 14 years. This is further is being supported by Sarv Shiksha Abhiyan, which was established in 2001. And even the midday meal program, it has attracted numerous students in the primary school. So even
So if we
in
see
the
again
education
the
system.
statistics,
So if we
it
see
says that
again the
India's literacy
statistics,
rate was
it says that
partly
India's literacy rate was
12.2%, which
partly
increased to
12.2%, which increased to
74.0%
74.0%
as per the census
as
which
per
was
the
held in
census which
2011.
was held in
Now,
2011.
the next two
Now, the
points
next
are
two points
achievement
are
of
achievement
healthcare
of
and the
field of
scientific
healthcare
achievement.
and the
How
scientific
can this
achievements.
add to the
How
economy?
can this add to the economy? We'll see that.
Healthcare, we can take the
Healthcare, we
example
can
of
take the
Ayushman
example of
Bharat,
Ayushman
because
Bharat,
their aim was
because
to
their aim
provide
was
health
to
access
provide health
insurance to
access
coverage
insurance
for
to
low economic
coverage for low
income
economic
earners in the
income
country,
earners in the
and
country,
many Indians
and
were
many
benefited
Indians
through
were
this.
benefited
So
through
it
this.
actually
So
did
it actually
add to the
did
glory of
add to the glory of the Indian
and
economy.
scientific
And the
achievements,
scientific achievements, any
changes or
scientific
the
changes or
technological
the technological
know-how of the country,
know-how of the
it
country,
it has a
it has
great
a
import,
great
like great
import
important
like
role
great
in Indian
important role
economy, and it has done
in
a good
Indian
job over
economy,
there
and it
as
has
well.
done a good
We
job
have
over
been
there as
achieving a
well.
lot of
We
things,
have
a
been
lot of things
achieving
in scientific
a
area
lot
as
of
well.
things in scientific
Now the
area
next
as well.
point is
Now the next point
natural
is
resources, which is
natural
very
resources,
important
which
and
is
which is
very
very clear
important and
as
which
well,
is very
because
clear
the
as well,
country which
because
has more
the country
resources
which has
is
more
definitely
resources
going to
is
have a good
definitely going
economy
to have
around.
a good economy around.
Now, when we
Now,
talk
when
about
we talk
Indian
about
economy,
Indian
we can't
economy,
forget
we
the role
can't
of
forget the
NITI
role
Aayog.
of Niti
What
Aayog.
does NITI
What
stand
does
for?
Niti stand
NITI
for?
is National
Niti is
Institution
National
for
Institution
Transforming
for
India.
Transforming India.
NITI Aayog is a
Niti Aayog
policy
is a
think tank
policy think
formed for
tank formed for
ensuring the
ensuring the
implementation
implementation
of
of
government
government
policies
policies
and
and
programs. I would
programs.
like to give
I
the
would like to
background.
give the background.
It was
It was
held
held
the resolution
the
for the
resolution
Union
for the
Cabinet through
Union
the
Cabinet through
passing
the
of the
passing
work
of
was done in
the
1st
work
January
was done
2015,
in
and it has been
1st
working
January
efficiently.
2015,
So
and
the
it has been
policy is
working
formed for ensuring the
efficiently. So
implementation
the
of the
policy is
government
formed for
policies as
ensuring the
stated earlier.
implementation of the
The
government
function
policies
of
I have
it would
stated
include
earlier. The
critical,
function of
directional,
it
and
would include
strategical input
critical,
for the
directional,
overall
and
development
strategical
of the
input
country
for the
economically
overall
or
development of
financial
the country
development.
economically or
Now,
the
there are
financial
seven
development.
pillars of
Now,
NITI Aayog.
there are seven
I
pillars
would like to
of
read it
Niti
out
Aayog.
because
I
all
would
the
like to
pillars
read
are
it out
actually
because all the
self-explanatory, so I don't have
pillars
to
are
go
actually
for that. The first one
self-explanatory,
is
so I don't have to go in
proactivity,
detail for that.
pro
The first one
people.
is proactivity, pro people.
Miss
Yes, ma'am.
Miss Riker, your time
Yes.
is up. 10 minutes
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
passed. Can you
Yes.
please
Okay, ma'am.
wind up?
I'll just wind it up within a
Yeah, yeah,
minute.
sure, sure. I'll just wind it
So
up
the
within a
first
minute.
is
Yeah.
proactivity,
So
then
the
the pro
first is
people,
proactivity, then the
participation
pro
of the
people,
people,
participation of
empowering,
the people,
inclusion of all,
empowering,
equality
inclusion of
and
all,
transparency.
equality,
Let us
and
see the
transparency.
initiatives,
Let
some
us see the
initiatives are
initiatives.
listed
Some
here. You
initiative
can
I've
just
just
read
listed
and you
out.
can
You can just read
see.
and you can understand the same.
The initiatives would include
The initiatives
15-year
would include
roadmap,
15-year
7-year vision
roadmap,
strategy,
7-year
the
vision
action plan,
strategy, the action
Amrit,
plan,
Digital
Amrit,
India,
Digital
Atal
India,
Innovation
Atal
Mission,
Innovation
medical
Mission,
reforms,
medical
reform in
reforms,
agriculture.
reform in agriculture, etc.
Now let us see the concluding
Now
part.
let us see the
So it says
concluding
that
part.
India
So it
has seen
says
a
that
drastic
India
change
has
in its
seen a
economy,
drastic
which is
change
very
in
true.
its economy,
There have
which
been
is
many
very true.
ups and
There
downs
have
in
been
the
many
economy,
ups
but
and downs
still
in the
we have
economy, but
maintained
still
our
we have maintained our
position.
position.
Since
Position.
1947,
Since
that was
1947,
independence
that
time,
was
India
independence
has
time,
achieved
India
tremendous
has
progress
achieved
in
tremendous
raising growth,
progress in
income
raising
levels,
growth,
and
income
standards of
levels, and
living in
standards of
numerous
living
sectors.
in numerous
There were
sectors.
many
There were
challenges
many
Indian
challenges
economy faced.
Indian
Challenges
economy
include
faced. Challenges
poverty,
include
poverty,
poverty,
unemployment,
poverty,
inadequate
unemployment,
infrastructure, and
inadequate
many others.
infrastructure,
But
and many
all
other.
are
But
being
all
worked
are
upon,
being
and now
worked
the
upon,
progress
and
is
now the
clearly
progress is
visible.
clearly
Even the
visible.
challenges
Even
that
the
India is
challenges that
facing
India
today
is facing
are
today
being
are
tackled
being
anyhow,
tackled anyhow,
and the efforts
and
are
the
still going
efforts are
on.
still
So we
going
can
on.
see
So
that
we can
India
see
is
that
having
India is
potential to
having
have
potential to
even
have
more prosperous
even
economy
more
in the
prosperous
future
economy
if
in the future
inclusive
if
growth keeps on
its
going
inclusive
higher.
growth
And
keeps on
I
going
think we as
higher.
Indians should
And
keep the
I
hopes
think we as
alive,
Indians should
because
keep
India
the
is
hopes
definitely
alive,
going to prosper.
because India
India
is
is
definitely going to prosper. India is
improving in almost all the aspects.
improving
So
in
even
almost
economy
all the
will get
aspects. So
prosper,
even economy will
and
get
India
prosper,
will be able to
and
achieve higher
India
goals.
will be able to achieve higher goals. This is for sure.
For the PPT, these were the
For the
references
PPT,
used.
these were the references used.
I thank you all
I
for
thank you all
listening
for
to my
listening to
presentation.
my
Thanks for
presentation,
giving me
and
the
thanks for giving the time.
Thank you, Prachiti. I really like your your optimistic spirit and your vociferous positive enthusiasm for the economy of our country. Uh, I have my own doubts about that, yeah, but then I will not share them here. But surely, I think your presentation and your spirit was very contagious when you were presenting about the economy of our country. So, anyone has any questions to Prachiti, you can direct them to her. So, Prachiti, do you keep a track of the budget which is presented every year? And are you interested in understanding the various nuances of the same?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
actually
I'm
interested in
actually
economics a
interested
lot.
in
I love
economics
this
a lot.
subject.
I love the subject.
Okay, that's wonderful to hear. Yeah, any questions before we move on to the last speaker? Speakers, rather. Yeah, I think nobody is asking questions. I think you are just getting congratulatory messages on the chat box. I think all of them are quite happy with your presentation. I think it's nice that you are getting a platform like this because some laypersons like us who have a very passing knowledge of what is happening in the country with regard to policies and other decisions, I think a presentation like this will help us understand things better. Thank you very much for the presentation, Ms.
Thank you,
Riker.
ma'am. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Now we will move on to the last presentation of the conclave. It is going to be presented by two members. One is Ms. Shalini Rebello and Miss Fernandez, and they will be talking about idioms and their origins. So another interesting, I think, a very interesting presentation to wind up this session for today. So over to you, both of you.
Want to let us know? Want to let us know?
Hi, ma'am. Are we audible?
Yes, you are audible.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, ma'am. We're just presenting, starting our slideshow. Good day, everyone. I'm Shalini.
And I'm Cerise. And as our creator's title suggests today, we are definitely nuts about the topic we are going to be presenting. And you might think that this topic
You,
is a piece of cake.
your voice is echoing, Kiris. I mean, I can hear several voices.
You,
Sorry about that.
One of you may be.
I'm Cerise, and as our
Only one
creator's
of you.
title suggests, we are definitely nuts about the topic we are going to be presenting today. And you might think that this topic is a piece of cake, but trust me, it's going to blow your mind. Some of us use idioms often without wondering what an idiom is, why people use it, and how did it originate. Well, that's okay if you can't make heads or tails out of these questions, because that's why we are here, to give you the answer to these questions.
but before we get to the idioms, let's refresh our basics. So, according to the Cambridge Dictionary definition, idioms are the style of expression in writing, speech, or music that is typical of a particular period. Idioms are everyday expressions that have seemingly been around forever, and we use them to convey ideas in an illustrative manner that help us to put our points across. Now, let's get to the idioms with Greek origins. The first one we have, that is courtesy to our title, to spill the beans, that is to tell a secret, whether inadvertently or not. In ancient Greek, there were a number of secret societies. Okay, okay, sorry about that. Ma'am, am I not clear? Uh, Ma'am,
You're clear.
I think that's
Yeah.
okay. Okay, ma'am. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah. So to spill the beans, in ancient Greek, there were a number of secret societies. Therefore, letting any Tom, Dick, and Harry was just not it. So, if a person wanted to join, the members of their group would decide whether the person is fit to join through a voting system wherein each member would drop a bean in a jar. White beans meant approval, whereas black beans meant disapproval. Interestingly, only a few black beans were enough to reject a candidate. And it was only the officials of the society who knew how many beans were there. Therefore, spilling the beans or but however, without revealing the secret. The next idiom we have is to not have a clue. That is, to have no idea, to lack inspiration, or to be perplexed. As you can see on the screen, the meaning of the word clue has changed over time because of the ancient Greek story of King Theseus and the Minotaur, the half man, half bull beast. In this story, King Theseus wanted to kill the beasts that lived in a maze. However, no one succeeded because they were either killed in the maze or they were lost in the maze. So, King Theseus, however, was determined to kill the beast, and so he did so, and he was succeeded at it. And he found his way back by rewinding the ball of thread that he had unwound before making his way through the maze. Next, we have idioms from Roman origins. The first one is, which many of us could relate, that is to get out of bed on the wrong side, which means to be bad tempered or grumpy. So, according to a Roman superstition, getting out of the bed on the left side is a big no no. Because at that time it was believed that the left side of the bed is unlucky, because that's where the evil spirits would hang out and their impact was felt throughout the day, thus ruining the person's mood during the day. The next idiom we have is to set off on the wrong foot, that is, to begin something badly. Okay, so this idiom too emphasizes the left side, as in the Roman society, it was believed that the left side was unlucky because it was the gods that protected the right side and the evils lingered on the left side. And this was because in Latin the word left meant sinister. Okay. In fact, even individuals like Petronius, who was a Roman courtier, he urged fellow Romans to always enter and leave any place with the right foot, to the extent that even guards or captain charged that people would follow this rule because of their fear of anything evil. The next idiom we have is to give someone the cold shoulder, which means to behave in an unfriendly way towards someone, to snub someone, to be unenthusiastic about an idea. So during medieval times in England, the guest that was invited would obviously be treated with a warm welcome and reception. However, the unwanted guests, or the guests who were just passing by, or the guests who came for a casual visit, or who stayed too long in their place, were given a cold shoulder of mutton, maybe from the previous night before. So next time, if you have unwanted visitors, just serve them cold meat. Maybe they might get the hint.
Now fasten your seatbelts, for we are going to be looking at some idioms concerning origin. First, we start off with not the hand, but the leg. To pull someone's leg means to make someone the target of a good humored joke or deception. Now, there are three origins of this idiom. One stems from a Scottish rhyme that uses draw rather than pull in a literary work called Rhymes by Alexander Anderson, which was published in 1867. And the rhyme goes as follows. He preached and at last drew the all, bodies lake. Say the kirk got the gatherings of our Auntie Meg. For context, Auntie Meg happened to be the subject of a certain amount of trickery and deception. The second theory suggests that in the past, two robbers would target an individual and one would pull the individual leg while the other would rob them of their valuables. As for the third origin, which is from England, which is bad but happy, refers to the right of a criminal who is being sentenced to hanging to have his relatives or friends pull on his or her legs to put in their death. Scary, right? Well, the next one's even scarier. Skeleton in the cupboard, which means an embarrassing secret. It was not until 1832 in the UK that the dissection of a body for study and research was used by law. There was a huge demand for bodies. There were few to be had. Some doctors resorted to shady dealings with grave robbers who dug up corpses and sold them. This exchange was a matter of utmost secrecy, and many ambitious doctors had a skeleton in their cupboard. Next, to bite the bullet is to show courage in facing a difficult or unpleasant situation. On the battle of the last century, wounded men were operated on without painkillers and anesthesia, and so they were actually encouraged to bite on the bullet to help them forget. Next, to steal someone's thunder is to upstage someone to take credit properly belonging to someone else. The expression was coined by a playwright and critic, John Dennis, somewhere in the 16th and 17th century. He discovered that by rattling a sheet of tin, he could actually make the sound of thunder for a dramatic effect in his play Atheist and Virginia in 1709. The play was not well received though. However, the sound effects were very successful. But not long afterwards was his thunder actually stolen in the production of Macbeth. It was reported that Dennis leaped to his feet in anger, crying, "See how the rascals use me! They will not let my play run, and yet they steal my thunder." Next, here are some two interesting idioms we think you need to learn if you haven't already. First, we have the cloud cuckoo land, which means divorced from the reality of ordinary life. Cloud cuckoo land was coined by the 4th century BC Greek playwright Aristophanes in his play The Birds. In the play, the birds build an imaginary city in the sky. The play was translated by Henry F. Carey in 1824, and thus the book was later renamed as Cloud Cuckoo Land. Shalini, you've been awfully quiet. Cat got your tongue?
No, not really. I mean, if you remember, we planned to present our presentation this way.
Oh, sorry, I was in the Cloud Cuckoo Land. As you might have already guessed, the idiom cat got your tongue, sorry, means when someone teases an other person for being at the loss of words. This idiom again has two origins. The first may lie with the ancient Egyptians' cat worship. At that time, the tongues of people who misbehaved in any way were cut and fed to the cats around so that the people wouldn't misbehave. The second origin stems from the 18th and the 19th century, where when the sailors of the English Royal Navy who misbehaved or kept a secret were whipped with a torture device called cat o' nine tails. To conclude, idioms are a proof that the human mind and imagination is incredible because of our ability to see patterns and similarities between seemingly unrelated ideas. Idioms add that flavor to our bland conversations, and so we need not shy away from using as many as we wish. Therefore, we encourage you to use as many as possible whenever and wherever you can. Thank you, and these are our references.
Thank you very much for that beautiful presentation. I think it is a feather on your cap that you have done this so well. I think language and its various uses are is absolutely fascinating, especially to me. I love etymology and origin stories of words and phrases and idioms. So this presentation was a very informative one. I'm sure the audience also would agree to that. If you have any questions, comments, observations, you may please unmute your mic or you might type them in the chat box. So I think since there are no more questions, I think all of us should probably unmute our mics and give a round of applause for all the presenters who were, I think, equally passionate about what they were presenting, and they have put their heart and soul into the entire presentation. And I think we have gained so much in terms of knowledge and so much information. And I think some of us may become we might start liking idioms, and some of us might start looking at the policies of the Indian government, because all the topics are related to our everyday life in some way or the other, because language and economics make the world go round. Okay, so please let us unmute and give a round of applause to all the presenters. Very much for that. I once again congratulate the organizers and the college for giving our budding scholars a platform like this. May I now hand over the session to our host, Dr. Palia Pandit.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Susan, for that very wonderful moderation of the session. And congratulations to all the presenters for their scholarly presentations. Uh, just an announcement before I formally conclude the session. The feedback link for the session is up in the chat box. It will be active for 15 minutes. Those who have attended the session are requested to fill in the feedback. You will be getting a certificate in your email as soon as you fill the form. So we have come to the end of a wonderful session today. And on behalf of IQAC of Dempe College, all the faculty members and everyone from here, especially from Team Conclave 2023, I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Susan Deborah for accepting our invitation to be the chairperson and sparing her valuable time with us today for the session. Your expertise has definitely contributed quite positively to this session. We appreciate and thank all the speakers, Ms. Zunaida, Mr. Chiti, Ms. Nikita, Ms. Shafali, and Ms. Sirish, for their erudite presentations. I extend gratitude to the faculty mentors, Mr. Mohit Suptanar from the Department of Political Science, Ms. Gail from the Department of Economics, Mr. Karthik Ayers and Dr. Akshita Bhatt from the Department of English, and I appreciate the time and effort they have taken to guide our young scholars. A big thank you to all the audience for being with us throughout the session and supporting our presenters. And a thank you to Gaurang, the system administrator of our college, for providing smooth technical support throughout the session. Thank you, everyone, and have a pleasant day. Thank you.